Hello guys, welcome to Ben 10 What If. So in this video, we will see what if Ben 10 never became a hero. If you enjoy these kinds of stories, don't forget to show us some love by hitting the like button and subscribing to the channel. Your support means the world to us. Now, let's start the story. Chapter 2, Consequences. 6 months could change everything. The calendar said February, but Ben Tennyson's life had transformed more dramatically than any of his alien forms. Ben stretched across his custom king-sized bed, scrolling through social feeds on a brand new tablet. His bedroom barely resembled the space from last summer. Posters of himself in various alien forms covered the walls, fan mail spilled from boxes in the corner, and expensive gaming equipment dominated one wall. Being famous paid well, especially after Ben's parents hired an actual agent to handle his career. Ben. Breakfast. His mom's voice carried up the stairs. Coming. Ben called back without moving. He was too busy reviewing clips from last night's appearance on the Jimmy Fallon show, where he transformed into 4 arms and bench-pressed the entire Tonight Show band. Comments poured in by the thousands. Ben 10 is GOAT. 4 arms could literally crush Thor. Don't at me, my little brother won't stop talking about Heat Blast LMAO, Ben grinned. After nearly quitting the spotlight following the Vilgax incident, he'd made a triumphant return when public demand became too great to ignore. The official story, carefully crafted by government officials and Ben's new PR team, painted him as Earth's savior who had sacrificed his own fame to defeat the alien warlord. Nobody needed to know he'd almost handed the planet to Vilgax on a silver platter due to his own ego. Ancient history now. A text from his agent popped up. MTV wants you for their spring break special. 7 figures. Call me. 7 figures. For a weekend of turning into aliens at a beach party. Ben still couldn't believe it sometimes. Benjamin Kirby Tennyson. Breakfast. Now. His mother's patience had clearly run out. All right, Ben muttered, finally rolling out of bed. He caught his reflection in the full-length mirror, designer clothes, professionally styled hair, and the ever-present Omnitrix on his wrist. 10-year-old Ben from last summer wouldn't recognize him. He'd turned 11 in December with a celebration that made tabloid covers, a packed stadium where he'd cycled through all 10 aliens for adoring fans. Grandpa Max hadn't attended. Neither had Gwen. Downstairs, his mom placed pancakes on the table. You have school in 20 minutes. About that. Ben grabbed the syrup. Can we call in remote learning today? I've got a meeting with the Ben 10 video game developers this afternoon. Sandra Tennyson's expression tightened. No, Ben. We agreed, school comes first, fame second. But Mom, no buts. She cut him off. Your grades are already slipping. Principal White called yesterday about your math test. Ben rolled his eyes. What's the point? I'm literally worth millions. You think Diamond Head needs algebra? You're not always going to be Diamond Head, she countered. Someday you'll just be Ben again. As if. Ben mumbled through a mouthful of pancake. The Omnitrix was his ticket to everything. Why couldn't they understand that? The doorbell rang before their argument could escalate. Ben's dad answered, returning moments later with a familiar face that made Ben groan. Look who stopped by, Carl Tennyson said cheerfully. Your Grandpa Max. Grandpa Max stood in the kitchen doorway, still wearing that same old Hawaiian shirt. His expression softened seeing Ben, but the disapproval remained visible in his eyes. Hey, sport, Max said. Been a while. Hey, Grandpa, Ben replied, suddenly fascinated by his pancakes. They hadn't spoken properly since Ben's return to fame 3 months ago. I thought I might give you a ride to school today, Max suggested. Catch up a bit. Ben glanced at his parents, hoping for rescue. His dad shrugged while his mom nodded. Enthusiastically. What a wonderful idea. Sandra beamed. Ben was just saying how excited he was for school today, weren't you, Ben? Totally, Ben muttered, defeat in his voice. 10 minutes later, Ben slumped in the passenger seat of the rust bucket, the familiar smell of motor oil and Grandpa Max's questionable cooking bringing back memories of last summer. So, Max began as they drove. Saw you on Fallon last night. Yeah. Pretty cool, right? Forearms always kills it with the audience. Max's grip tightened on the steering wheel. Is that what the Omnitrix is to you now? A way to kill it with the audience? Here we go, Ben thought. Look, Grandpa, I know you don't approve, it's not about approval, Ben. It's about responsibility. Max turned onto a side street, deliberately taking the long route to school. After Vilgax, I thought you understood that. I did. I do. Ben defended. But why can't I have both? Be responsible and enjoy being famous? Because I'm not seeing the responsibility part. Max's voice remained level but firm. What I see is a kid getting rich off powers he didn't earn while ignoring their true purpose. Ben crossed his arms. I save people all the time. Just last week I pulled that bus back from going off the bridge. With 12 camera crews present, Max noted. Conveniently there for your energy drink promotion. So what? People got saved, I got paid. Win-win. Max sighed deeply. The plumbers have detected unusual energy signatures lately. Similar to Vilgax's technology. That got Ben's attention. Vilgax escaped? No. But others are coming. Others who know about the Omnitrix. Ben shrugged with more confidence than he felt. Let them come. I handled Vilgax, didn't I? Barely, Max replied. And only after nearly dooming Earth with your fame-seeking. Ancient history, Ben waved dismissively. I'm way stronger now. Stronger, maybe. Wiser? I'm not so sure. They pulled up to the school where a small crowd of students immediately spotted the RV, excited whispers spread, Ben 10 had arrived. Thanks for the ride, Ben said quickly, reaching for the door. And the lecture. Really missed those. Max caught his arm. Ben. Just, be careful. Power like yours attracts dangerous attention. Not all of it can be defeated with a flashy transformation and a catchphrase. Whatever you say, Grandpa. Ben hopped out, immediately surrounded by admirers. Without looking back, he strolled toward the school entrance, high-fiving classmates and signing autographs. The warning faded amid the adulation. Just like always. Bellwood Middle School had changed for Ben Tennyson. Once a nobody, he now ruled the halls like a celebrity, which, technically, he was. Ben. Over here. Cash called out, waving from their lunch table. The former bully had become Ben's most devoted follower once the fame kicked in. Ben slid into his seat, immediately surrounded by his usual entourage. Cash and JT flanked him like bodyguards while various popular kids competed for his attention. You doing the monster truck rally this weekend? JT asked. My dad can get us VIP passes. Can't, Ben unwrapped his custom-made lunch. Flying to Tokyo for a commercial shoot. Some Japanese soda brand is paying me to turn into upgrade and merge with a vending machine. The table erupted in impressed comments. Only one voice cut through with a different tone. Sounds like a valuable use of alien technology. Ben didn't need to look up. No one asked you, dweeb. Gwen stood at the edge of the table, arms crossed. Unlike Ben, she looked mostly the same as last summer, except for the ancient book tucked under her arm and the subtle glow in her eyes when she got angry. Grandpa Max sent me to check on you, she said. Figured you'd blow him off. Not blowing him off, Ben took a bite of his sandwich. Just busy being, important. The table snickered appreciatively. Gwen didn't. We need to talk. Alone. Whatever you've gotta say, you can say in front of my friends, Ben gestured grandly. Gwen's eyes narrowed. Then, with a subtle finger movement and whispered word, Ben's chocolate milk exploded upward, drenching his face and designer's shirt. The table fell silent. Ben sputtered, jumping up. What the, how did you, oops, Gwen said innocently. Looks like you need to clean up. Bathroom's that way. She pointed toward the hallway. Fuming but curious, Ben followed her, ignoring the whispers behind him. Once they were alone in the empty hallway, he confronted her. Since when can you do magic outside of emergencies? Since I actually trained with my abilities instead of just showing off with them. Gwen's voice dripped with judgment. Something you might try sometime. I train. Ben protested. Training for a photo shoot isn't the same as training to save lives, Gwen countered. But that's not why I'm here. Grandpa's picking up weird energy readings from the abandoned subway tunnels. We're checking it out tonight. Ben checked his watch, his regular watch, not the Omnitrix. Can't. I've got a live stream at 6. Cancel it. Do you have any idea how much they're paying me? Gwen grabbed his wrist, the one with the Omnitrix. This thing didn't choose you so you could get rich, Ben. It chose you because the universe thought you could be a hero. Ben pulled away. I am a hero. People love Ben 10. They love the spectacle, Gwen corrected. But when real danger comes, will your fans protect you? Or will they just record your defeat for their social feeds? The barb struck deeper than Ben wanted to admit. Fine. I'll come. After my live stream. 8 o'clock. Old subway entrance behind the mall. Gwen turned to leave, then paused. And Ben? Try bringing the hero instead of the celebrity for once. She walked away, leaving Ben standing alone with a chocolate milk stain spreading down his shirt and an uncomfortable feeling in his stomach that no amount of fame could wash away. The live stream ran long. Fans kept donating money for Ben to transform into their requested aliens and perform tricks. By the time he wrapped up, it was nearly 9. Part of him considered blowing off Gwen and Grandpa Max completely, they'd never know the difference. But something in Gwen's words had stuck with him. Reluctantly, Ben slipped out his bedroom window as XLR-8, racing through Bellwood toward the abandoned mall. The old building stood dark against the night sky, windows boarded up after closing years ago. Ben changed back to human form before entering the subway access point, not wanting to waste the Omnitrix charge. Hello. Ben called into the darkness. Grandpa? Gwen. Sorry I'm late. The fans wouldn't let me go. No answer. Just the echo of his voice bouncing off concrete walls. Guys? Ben pulled out his phone, activating the flashlight. If this is some kind of lesson about punctuality, I get it, okay? As he ventured deeper into the tunnel, Ben noticed strange markings on the walls, not graffiti, but deliberate symbols that seemed to glow faintly in his flashlight beam. The air felt charged, like before a lightning storm. A noise behind him, metal scraping against concrete. Ben spun around. Who's there? His finger hovered over the Omnitrix. I'm warning you, I'm Ben 10, a voice drawled from the shadows. Yeah, I know exactly who you are. The whole world knows, thanks to your massive ego. A figure stepped into the flashlight's beam, a boy not much older than Ben, with dark hair and a permanent sneer. He wore a torn black t-shirt and jeans, a strange metal device strapped to his left arm. Who are you? Ben demanded, already turning the Omnitrix dial. Name's Kevin. The boy leaned against the wall. Kevin Levin. And you're trespassing in my home. Your home. Ben glanced around at the abandoned subway. You live here. Not all of us get rich turning into circus freaks on TV, Kevin replied bitterly. Some of us have real powers we have to hide. As if to demonstrate, Kevin placed his hand against a metal pipe. His skin transformed, taking on the properties of the metal itself. With a casual flick, he snapped the pipe in half. Whoa! Ben couldn't hide his surprise. You're, like me. Not even close. Kevin's metal form reverted to normal. I was born with my powers. Had to run away when people found out. Meanwhile, you find some alien watch and suddenly you're a millionaire celebrity. The resentment in Kevin's voice was obvious, but Ben also heard something else, loneliness. He recognized it because he'd felt it too, before the Omnitrix. So you're the energy signature Grandpa detected, Ben realized. Not aliens. You're Grandpa the plumber? Kevin asked, surprising Ben with his knowledge. Yeah, they've been trying to catch me for weeks. Something about unstable powers and potential threat. Typical government paranoia. How do you know about the plumbers? Kevin's expression darkened. Let's just say I've had run-ins with them before. Nothing good comes from guys in uniforms, trust me. Ben lowered his hand from the Omnitrix. Something about Kevin intrigued him. Here was someone who understood having powers, being different, but who hadn't had the lucky breaks Ben had enjoyed. So what do you do down here besides break pipes? Ben asked, genuinely curious. Kevin studied him suspiciously, then shrugged. Come on. I'll show you. He led Ben deeper into the tunnels, eventually reaching a larger chamber that Kevin had transformed into a surprisingly comfortable living space. Old subway seats formed a couch. Scavenged electronics created an entertainment center. Most impressively, complex machinery filled one corner, humming with energy. What is all this? Ben asked, eyeing the technology. My workshop, Kevin replied with evident pride. I can absorb energy too, not just materials. Helps me understand tech, build things most people can't. He approached a particularly complex device. Like this. It's a disruption field generator. Can knock out power to half the city if I want. Useful for certain jobs. Jobs? Ben raised an eyebrow. What kind of jobs? Kevin's smile turned sly. The kind that pay cash to people with special abilities. Nothing too bad, mostly security system bypasses, retrieval of certain items from secure locations. You mean theft, Ben translated. I mean survival, Kevin shot back. We can't all get sponsored by Nike. Ben should have been appalled. This guy was essentially admitting to being a criminal. Yet something in Kevin's independent spirit appealed to Ben, the freedom to use powers however he wanted, without lectures about responsibility. So where are your famous grandpa and cousin? Kevin changed the subject. I thought they were meeting you here. I thought so too, Ben frowned, checking his phone. No messages. Maybe they got the time wrong. Or maybe they set you up, Kevin suggested. Get you here so the plumbers could grab both of us. No way, Ben shook his head. They wouldn't do that. But doubt crept in. Grandpa Max had seemed awfully interested in these energy signatures. What if this had been a trap all along? Before Ben could ponder further, an explosion rocked the tunnel. Dust and debris filled the air as armored figures rappelled into Kevin's hideout. Plumbers. Kevin snarled, skin transforming to match the metal floor. I knew it. No. Ben protested as men in specialized armor surrounded them. This isn't Grandpa's style. Benjamin Tennyson, one of the agents addressed him. Stand down. We're here for the Levin boy. See? Kevin's metal fist clenched. They just want me. The lead agent stepped forward. Kevin 11, you're wanted for multiple counts of theft, property damage, and illegal use of extraterrestrial technology. Come quietly or we will use force. Nobody calls me Kevin 11, Kevin growled. And nobody's taking me anywhere. He lunged at the nearest agent, metal fist connecting with a sickening crunch. The subway chamber erupted into chaos. Agents fired energy weapons that Kevin absorbed, growing stronger with each blast. Ben stood frozen in the middle. These weren't Max's plumbers, he didn't recognize any of them. But they clearly knew who he was. And Kevin. Kevin was fighting like someone used to violence, his face twisted with rage. Ben. Kevin called out as he wrestled with two agents. A little help here? Or do you only use that watch when cameras are rolling? The taunt stung. Without further hesitation, Ben activated the Omnitrix, selecting Diamond Head. The familiar energy washed over him as his body transformed into the crystalline alien. Leave him alone. Ben shouted, firing crystal shards that pinned several agents to the wall. The tide turned quickly with both powered individuals fighting together. The agents retreated, their leader shouting into a communicator, "Target has allied with Tennyson. Requesting backup." As the last agent disappeared up the rope, Kevin turned to Ben, an odd gleam in his eye. "Not bad, celebrity," he panted, returning to human form. "Thought you might chicken out." "Why would they call you Kevin 11? Ben asked, reverting to human as the Omnitrix timed out. Kevin's expression soured. "Because I've got 11 different types of energy I can absorb and redirect. They make it sound like I'm copying your stupid Ben 10 brand." "It's not stupid," Ben defended automatically. "Whatever." Kevin began gathering equipment. "This place is blown. I need to move." "Where will you go?" Kevin paused, considering Ben with newfound interest. "You really stuck your neck out for me." "Why? You don't even know me." Ben shrugged. "Those guys weren't giving you a fair chance. And..." He hesitated. "It felt good. Using my powers because I wanted to, not for a sponsor or a camera." A slow smile spread across Kevin's face. "You know, Tennyson, maybe you're not as big a sellout as I thought." He hoisted a bag of equipment over his shoulder. "Want to do something really fun with those powers of yours?" Ben should have said no. Should have called Grandpa Max. Should have remembered the lessons from the Vilgax incident. Instead, he grinned. "What did you have in mind?" The next 3 weeks passed in a blur of adrenaline and poor decisions. Kevin Levin introduced Ben to a side of having powers he'd never experienced, one without rules, responsibilities, or cameras. They started small. Kevin showed Ben how to use Upgrade to hack ATMs for free cash. Ben showed Kevin how gray matter could bypass security systems in high-end electronics stores. They borrowed a sports car that XLR8 and Kevin's metal form modified for impossible speed, racing it through Bellwood at night before returning it to the owner's driveway with no one the wiser. Ben told himself they weren't really hurting anyone. Just having fun. Just being kids with incredible abilities. His regular life continued in parallel, school, when he bothered to attend, sponsorship deals, media appearances. But increasingly, he lived for the nights with Kevin, where fame didn't matter and powers existed for their own enjoyment. Gwen confronted him after he missed 3 consecutive training sessions with Grandpa Max. "What is wrong with you?" she demanded, cornering him after school. "Grandpa's been trying to reach you for days." "Been busy," Ben shrugged, checking his phone as another text from Kevin came through. Tonight's plan involved stinkfly and a billboard for a mayoral candidate Kevin particularly disliked. "With what?" "Your new friend." Gwen's eyes narrowed. "The one with the energy absorption powers. The one who's been on the plumber's watch list for months." Ben's head snapped up. "You've been spying on me." "Someone has to." Gwen's voice rose. "You're hanging out with a criminal, Ben." "Kevin's not a criminal," Ben defended. "He's just misunderstood. Nobody gave him the chances I got." "So you're helping him steal things? Vandalize property? That's your idea of giving him a chance?" Ben lowered his voice as other students passed by. "We're just having fun. Nobody gets hurt." Yet, Gwen said ominously. But Kevin has a history, Ben. Violent outbursts. Property destruction. He was kicked out of 3 foster homes before running away. How would you know that? Because unlike you, I actually listen when Grandpa talks. Gwen retorted. The plumbers have been tracking Kevin for years. He's dangerous. Ben rolled his eyes. You're just jealous I have a friend who doesn't lecture me constantly. A friend who's using you, Gwen countered. Using your fame to keep authorities away, using your aliens to commit bigger crimes. Whatever. Ben turned to leave. I don't need this. I don't need you or Grandpa telling me what to do anymore. Gwen grabbed his arm, her eyes briefly glowing purple. Ben, please. I'm worried about you. We both are. For a moment, doubt flickered across Ben's face. Then his phone buzzed again with Kevin's message, got something big planned tonight. Life-changing. I'm fine, Ben pulled away. Kevin and I understand each other. He doesn't care about Ben 10 the celebrity, he just likes hanging out with plain old Ben. And the Omnitrix, Gwen added pointedly. Don't forget, he likes that quite a bit too. Ben ignored her, hurrying away with a growing sense of unease he refused to acknowledge. Kevin was his friend. The first real friend who didn't care about his fame. That's all that mattered. Dude, this is going to be epic. Kevin's eyes gleamed with excitement as they crouched on a rooftop overlooking the Bellwood Scientific Research Center. Do you have any idea what's inside there? Ben shifted uncomfortably. Their fun had never involved breaking into government facilities before. No, but I'm guessing you're about to tell me. Experimental energy tech, Kevin whispered reverently. Next-gen stuff that can absorb and redirect power on a massive scale. With that, I could boost my abilities tenfold. Maybe even find a way to absorb your aliens temporarily. Absorb my aliens? Ben tensed. That doesn't sound safe. Safe is boring, Kevin dismissed. Besides, don't you want to see what happens when my powers combine with the Omnitrix? We could be unstoppable together. Ben gazed down at the heavily secured facility. Guards patrolled the perimeter. Security cameras covered every entrance. This wasn't petty theft or harmless pranks anymore. I don't know, Kevin. Breaking into a government lab, we could get into serious trouble. Kevin's friendly expression hardened slightly. I thought you were cool, Tennyson. I thought you understood what it means to have powers, to be above normal people's rules. I'm not above rules, Ben protested, though his actions over recent weeks suggested otherwise. Really? Kevin snorted. Is that why you use Diamond Head to cheat at school softball? Or XLR8 to cut in line at movies? Face it, Ben, you enjoy being special just as much as I do. The accusation hit uncomfortably close to home. Ben did enjoy the privileges his powers granted him. He had used them. Selfishly, repeatedly. This is different, Ben argued. This is breaking and entering, theft, it's liberating technology that belongs in the hands of people who understand it, Kevin countered. People like us. Ben wavered. Part of him, the part that still remembered Grandpa Max's lessons, screamed that this was wrong. But another part, the part that had grown accustomed to doing whatever he wanted without consequences, wondered what harm one more misadventure could cause. Fine, Ben sighed. But we're just looking. No stealing anything without discussing it first. Kevin's grin returned. Scout's honor. Now turn into that ghost alien, what's his name? Ghost Freak, Ben said, suppressing a shudder. He still didn't enjoy using that particular transformation, but it was perfect for infiltration. He activated the Omnitrix, selected Ghost Freak's silhouette, and transformed. The cold, alien consciousness of Ghost Freak washed over him, more pronounced than with his other transformations. Something about this form always felt wrong. Like he wasn't fully in control. Perfect, Kevin rubbed his hands together. Now phase us through the roof access. The main lab should be 3 floors down. Ben concentrated, making his form tangible enough to carry Kevin while remaining intangible enough to pass through solid matter. Together, they descended through the building's floors, bypassing security systems designed to detect physical intruders. The main laboratory took up an entire floor, a vast space filled with experimental equipment, computers, and in the center, a glowing containment unit housing what appeared to be swirling energy. "There it is," Kevin whispered reverently as Ben set him down. "The quantum energy capacitor. It can store unlimited power without degradation." Ben returned to human form, the Omnitrix timing out automatically. "How do you know all this? This looks like top secret stuff." "I have my sources," Kevin replied vaguely, approaching the containment unit. "Now keep watch while I figure out how to extract it." Something felt increasingly wrong about the situation. Ben surveyed the lab, noting security protocols far beyond anything they'd encountered in their previous adventures. "Kevin, I don't think..." "Relax," Kevin interrupted, already connecting devices from his backpack to the containment system. 5 minutes and we're out of here. No one will even know we were here until tomorrow." A small red light began blinking on a nearby console. Then another. And another. Kevin?" Ben pointed nervously. "I think they know we're here right now." Kevin glanced up, cursed, and worked faster. "Must have tripped a silent alarm. Hurry up and turn into something useful. For arms or Diamond Head." Ben tried activating the Omnitrix, but the face remained red, still recharging after the Ghost Freak transformation. "I can't. It needs time." Alarms suddenly blared throughout the facility. Steel shutters began descending over the exits. Kevin snarled in frustration, his hand transforming to match the metal of the containment unit as he tried forcing it open. "Kevin, stop!" Ben shouted. "Let's just get out of here." "Not without this." Kevin insisted, wrenching at the container. The energy inside pulsed dangerously. "I didn't come this far to leave empty-handed." The Omnitrix finally flashed green. Ben quickly transformed into XLR-8, racing to Kevin's side. "We need to go now," he insisted. "This place is locking down." "Almost got it," Kevin grunted, the metal housing beginning to buckle under his enhanced strength. Scientists and security personnel flooded into the lab through a door that hadn't yet sealed. They froze at the sight of Ben's alien form and Kevin's partially metallic body attacking the containment unit. "Stop! You're destabilizing the quantum matrix," one scientist shouted. Kevin ignored the warning, giving one final wrench that tore the container open. Energy erupted outward in a blinding flash. Ben was thrown backward by the explosion, crashing into equipment. When his vision cleared, he saw Kevin suspended in midair, the escaped energy swirling around and into him. Kevin's body contorted, his screams echoing through the lab as the power overloaded his absorption abilities. "Kevin!" Ben raced toward him, but a secondary explosion threw him back again. The force knocked him into a wall hard enough to revert him to human form. Chaos engulfed the lab. Scientists evacuated while security personnel took cover. Equipment sparked and burned. And at the center of it all, Kevin Levin underwent a horrifying transformation. His body bulged and shifted, energy crackling across his skin. When the light finally faded, Kevin stood transformed, his body a patchwork of materials he'd absorbed over time, metal, concrete, wood, and something else, something glowing with the same energy that had been contained. "Kevin." Ben approached cautiously. "Are you okay?" Kevin turned slowly, his face contorted with rage and pain. "This power, it's too much. Make it stop." "I don't know how." Ben reached for the Omnitrix, but it remained stubbornly red after his forcible reversion. Kevin's gaze fixed on the watch. "The Omnitrix, it can stabilize me. Ben, help me." He lunged forward, grabbing Ben's wrist. Energy crackled between them as Kevin tried to absorb power directly from the Omnitrix. Ben cried out in pain, struggling to break free. Let go. You're hurting me. I need it. Kevin growled, his voice distorting. I need more power. The Omnitrix sparked defensively, sending feedback that threw Kevin backward. He crashed into the remains of the containment unit, absorbing even more unstable energy. Ben scrambled away, clutching his wrist. The Omnitrix seemed undamaged but remained inactive. Kevin rose unsteadily, his form shifting between different absorbed materials. You. Kevin's eyes narrowed accusingly. You did this to me. You and your stupid watch. What? No. Ben backed away. This was your idea, remember? Breaking in here was your plan. And you let me do it. Kevin advanced, each step cracking the floor beneath him. Famous Ben 10, the hero, letting his friend walk into a trap. It wasn't a trap. Kevin, you're not thinking straight. Security personnel had regrouped, training weapons on both boys. On the ground. Now, they ordered. Kevin glanced at them contemptuously. With a casual gesture, he absorbed the energy from their weapons, rendering them useless. Then he turned back to Ben. I thought we were the same, Kevin said, betrayal evident in his voice. Both of us using our powers however we wanted. But you were just slumming it, weren't you? The celebrity playing at being bad before going back to your mansion and your fan club. That's not true. Ben protested. You're my friend. Friends don't let friends become monsters. Kevin roared, the energy inside him visibly destabilizing his form further. He lunged at Ben again, only to be intercepted by a blast of purple energy that knocked him sideways. Gwen stepped through a broken window, hands glowing with magical power. Get away from my cousin, she shouted, positioning herself between Ben and Kevin. Gwen. Ben had never been happier to see her. How did you? Grandpa's been monitoring Kevin for weeks, she explained quickly. We knew he was planning something big. We just didn't think you'd be stupid enough to help him. Kevin recovered from her attack, recognition flickering in his eyes. The cousin. Little Miss Perfect with her magic tricks. His mouth twisted into a sneer. Another Tennyson looking down on me. I don't look down on you, Gwen replied evenly. I pity you. And I'm trying to help. I don't want your help. Kevin absorbed the concrete beneath him, his entire body transforming to stone. I want what he has. The fame, the fortune, the power everyone respects instead of fears. He charged again, this time at both cousins. Gwen erected a magical barrier that Kevin smashed through with minimal effort. The impact sent her sliding backward, but she maintained her footing, firing another energy blast. Ben frantically checked the Omnitrix, still red. Without his aliens, he felt helpless. Ben, run! Gwen shouted as she dodged Kevin's attacks. I'll hold him off. I'm not leaving you. Ben looked around desperately for anything he could use as a weapon. Their standoff was interrupted by a familiar voice over the facility's PA system. Kevin Levin. This is Max Tennyson of the Plumbers. The building is surrounded. Your condition can be treated if you surrender now. Kevin paused, looking up at the speakers. For a moment, confusion and fear replaced rage on his face, a glimpse of the scared kid beneath the monster. Then his expression hardened again. Treated? Treated? He laughed bitterly. You mean contained? Experimented on. Turned into another government lab rat. No one wants to hurt you, Ben tried reasoning. The plumbers can help stabilize your powers. Like they helped me when I was younger. Kevin snarled. Tracking me, hunting me, calling me dangerous. Because you were dangerous. Gwen shot back. Just like you're proving right now. Kevin looked between them, then at the Omnitrix on Ben's wrist. Something calculative replaced the rage in his eyes. You know what? You're right. I am dangerous. He began absorbing energy from every electronic device in the room, growing visibly stronger. And it's time the world learned just how dangerous Kevin Levin can be. In a burst of absorbed power, Kevin blasted through the ceiling, creating an escape route. Before leaving, he fixed Ben with a venomous glare. This isn't over, Tennyson. You helped make me this way, and now you get to watch what I become. The world that worships Ben 10 is about to meet Kevin 11, and they'll never forget which of us is truly powerful. With that, he rocketed upward through the hole, disappearing into the night sky. Ben stared after him, shock and guilt overwhelming him. Gwen placed a hand on his shoulder. Are you hurt? She asked softly. Ben shook his head. Not physically. Plumber agents stormed the lab, led by Grandpa Max, who rushed immediately to his grandchildren. Thank God you're both all right, he embraced them. When we detected the energy spike, it's my fault, Ben interrupted, voice hollow. All of it. I helped Kevin break in here. I thought we were just having fun, but he wanted the energy tech all along. Max's expression shifted from relief to disappointment. Ben, don't, Ben cut him off. Just don't. I know what you're going to say. That I should have known better. That I let fame go to my head. That I forgot everything you taught me. His voice cracked. And you'd be right. Around them, scientists assessed damage while medical personnel treated injuries. The destruction was extensive. Equipment worth millions lay in ruins. And somewhere out there, Kevin Levin had become something new and dangerous, because Ben Tennyson had chosen to ignore all the warning signs. We need to find him, Ben said with sudden determination. Before he hurts anyone else. We will, Max assured him. But first, we need to deal with this. He gestured toward the lab entrance where news crews had already gathered, filming the aftermath. Police held back reporters shouting questions. Is it true Ben 10 was involved in the break-in? Was this a terrorist attack? Is Ben 10 working with the energy creature that escaped? Reality crashed down on Ben. This wasn't like his previous mistakes that PR teams could spin into heroic narratives. There were witnesses. Security footage. Evidence that Ben Tennyson, Earth's celebrated hero, had helped cause this disaster. The Omnitrix is supposed to protect people, Ben whispered, staring at the device that now seemed to weigh 1,000 pounds on his wrist. Instead, I used it to hurt them. Not intentionally, Gwen offered. Does that matter? Ben asked. Look around, Gwen. Look what I helped do. As if responding to his distress, the Omnitrix finally reactivated, glowing green. Ben stared at it with newfound wariness. The power he'd taken for granted, used for fame and selfish adventures, suddenly felt like a burden. Come on, Grandpa Max guided them toward a back exit. We need to get you both somewhere safe while we sort this out. There's nowhere safe, Ben replied, watching as the first news helicopters appeared overhead. Not anymore. The fallout came swiftly and mercilessly. By morning, Ben Tennyson's fall from grace dominated every headline and broadcast. Ben 10, hero or menace? Alien shapeshifter implicated in lab break-in, government questions safety of Omnitrix device, security footage leaked online, showing Ben as ghost freak helping Kevin infiltrate the facility. Expertly edited clips removed context, making it appear Ben had masterminded the entire operation. Social media exploded with hashtags like Cancel Ben 10 and Omnitrix threat. Ben watched it unfold from the safety of a plumber safe house, each new development hitting like a physical blow. His phone buzzed constantly with messages from his agent, publicist, sponsors, all abandoning him faster than rats from a sinking ship. Nike terminated his contract. His TV specials were cancelled. The video game developer stopped returning calls. Former friends at school gave interviews describing Ben as power mad and always showing off. They're vultures, Gwen commented, watching Ben scroll through the carnage on his tablet. Yesterday they loved you, today they're calling for the government to take the Omnitrix away. Maybe they should, Ben said quietly. Gwen looked alarmed. You don't mean that. Don't I? Ben placed the tablet down. Look what I did with it, Gwen. I turned it into a promotional tool. A way to get rich and popular. And when that got boring, I used it to help Kevin commit crimes. You made mistakes, she acknowledged. Big ones. But you're not the first person to let fame go to your head. Most famous people don't have alien superpowers, Ben countered. Most celebrities can't accidentally help create supervillains. The safe house door opened as Grandpa Max entered, looking exhausted from hours of damage control meetings with Plumber High Command. He carried a stack of papers that he placed on the table before Ben. What's this? Ben asked warily. Options, Max replied. The plumbers, and several Earth governments, want official oversight of the Omnitrix. They're proposing monitored usage, training protocols, and restricted transformations. Ben leafed through the documents, understanding just enough legal jargon to grasp the implications. They want to control when and how I use it. They want to prevent another incident like last night, Max corrected. And frankly, Ben, after everything that's happened, can you blame them? Ben couldn't. Not really. He'd proven himself unworthy of the Omnitrix's power, using it for personal gain rather than protection, ignoring warnings about responsibility, enabling Kevin's dangerous ambitions. What happens if I say no? He asked. Max's expression grew grave. That's not an option they're willing to accept. The Omnitrix is too powerful to remain unregulated after what happened. So it's agree or they take it by force. Ben clutched his wrist protectively. No one's talking about force, Max assured him. Not yet. But there are serious conversations happening about whether an 11-year-old should possess what might be the most powerful device in the galaxy. The truth hurt, but Ben couldn't deny it. He'd proven those doubters right. I need time to think, he said finally. Max nodded. I'll tell them you're considering the proposal. But Ben, they won't wait forever. After Max left, Ben stood by the window, watching plumber agents patrol the compound perimeter. Just days ago, he'd been adored by millions. Now he was effectively under house arrest, his reputation in tatters, his friend transformed into a monster bent on revenge. I really messed up, didn't I? He said, more to himself than to Gwen. Yes, she answered honestly. But that doesn't mean you can't fix it. How? Kevin's out there somewhere, probably planning his revenge. The public thinks I'm a menace. The government wants to put a leash on the Omnitrix. My parents are probably grounded for life. He slumped against the wall. Everything I built is gone. Everything you built was fake, Gwen said bluntly. The fame, the fortune, the fair weather friends. None of that was real, Ben. Thanks for the pep talk, he muttered sarcastically. I'm not trying to make you feel worse, she insisted. I'm trying to make you see that none of that stuff matters. What matters is what you do next. Ben glanced at the Omnitrix. What can I do? Nobody's going to trust me now. Then earn back their trust, Gwen said simply. Starting by finding Kevin before he hurt someone. As if summoned by her words, alarms blared throughout the compound. Max burst back into the room, his expression grim. It's Kevin, he announced. He's attacking the downtown power station, absorbing massive amounts of electricity. If he overloads the grid, half the state could lose power, including hospitals. Ben stood immediately, determination replacing self-pity. I'm going. Ben, wait, Max cautioned. The authorities want you to stay here. They don't trust, I don't care what they want, Ben interrupted, already activating the Omnitrix. Kevin is my responsibility. I helped create this situation, and I'm going to fix it. Before anyone could stop him, Ben transformed into XLR-8 and zipped past Max, out of the safe house, and toward downtown Bellwood. For the first time in months, he wasn't running toward cameras or fame. He was running toward redemption. Ben arrived at the power station to find chaos. Emergency vehicles surrounded the perimeter while workers evacuated. The facility itself glowed with unnatural energy as lightning-like discharges erupted from its center. Changing back to human form in an alley, Ben approached a police barricade. Officers immediately recognized him, their expressions hardening. "Tennyson," one shouted. "You're supposed to be in custody." "I'm here to help," Ben replied, trying to look past them toward the facility. "Haven't you helped enough?" another officer remarked bitterly. "We've got real heroes handling this, professionals, not attention-seeking kids." The word stung, but Ben couldn't argue with them. Instead, he activated the Omnitrix again, transforming into Ghost Freak before the officers could stop him. Phasing through their blockade, he headed toward the power station's central building. Inside, the scene was apocalyptic. Equipment sparked and melted. Emergency systems wailed futilely. And in the middle of the main transformer room stood Kevin, or what Kevin had become. His form had stabilized somewhat since the research facility, but the result was no less disturbing. His body remained a patchwork of materials. One arm metallic, the other rocky, one leg appeared wooden while the other glowed with energy. His face retained human features, twisted with rage and pain. "Kevin!" Ben called, returning to human form to communicate. Kevin turned, his expression shifting from surprise to cruel amusement. Well. If it isn't the famous Ben 10. Come to stop me? Or take selfies with fans while I work? I came to help you, Ben replied, cautiously approaching. What happened at the lab? It was an accident. The plumbers can still help stabilize your condition. My condition? Kevin laughed bitterly. You mean my evolution? I've never felt so powerful, Tennyson. I can absorb anything. Energy, matter, maybe even your alien DNA if I try hard enough. To demonstrate, he placed his hand against a humming transformer. Electricity flowed into him, causing the lights throughout the facility to flicker and die. Kevin's body glowed brighter with each second of contact. You're hurting people. Ben shouted. Hospitals need that power. And I should care why. Kevin sneered. Did anyone care when I was living in subway tunnels? When I was running from foster homes? When people called me a freak? I cared, Ben said quietly. I was your friend. Something flickered across Kevin's face, a moment of the old Kevin, the lonely boy who'd found a kindred spirit. Then his expression hardened again. Friends don't let friends turn into monsters, he echoed his words from the lab. You could have stopped me, warned me about the energy containment. But you didn't. Because you didn't really care about Kevin Levin, you just enjoyed having someone to break rules with. The accusation hit home because it contained truth. Ben had enjoyed their reckless adventures, the freedom from responsibility, the thrill of minor mischief. He hadn't considered consequences, for himself, for Kevin, for anyone. You're right, Ben admitted. I messed up. I got caught up in fame and then in breaking rules for fun. I didn't think about what could happen. He extended a hand. But I'm trying to fix it now. Let me help you, Kevin. Please. For a moment, Kevin seemed to consider it. Then his gaze dropped to the Omnitrix. There's only one way you can help me, Tennyson. His voice hardened. Give me the Omnitrix. Its power could stabilize me, or make me even stronger. You know I can't do that, Ben replied, dropping his hand. Can't. Or won't. Kevin growled. Always looking out for yourself, even now. He lunged forward with surprising speed, grabbing Ben's arm before he could activate the Omnitrix. Energy crackled between them as Kevin attempted to absorb power directly from the device. Ben cried out in pain. The Omnitrix sparked defensively, but Kevin maintained his grip, his body beginning to shift and change as traces of alien DNA transferred to him. Yes. Kevin's voice distorted as his features briefly resembled Heatblast, then Diamond Head. I can feel them. You're aliens. They're becoming mine. With desperate strength, Ben broke free, activating the Omnitrix as he stumbled backward. He transformed into 4 arms, his increased strength immediately apparent. This isn't the way, Kevin. Ben shouted. The Omnitrix's DNA can't be absorbed safely. You're making yourself more unstable. Kevin didn't listen. His body continued shifting, taking on characteristics of Ben's various aliens, Stinkfly's wings sprouting from his back, Ripjaw's teeth elongating in his mouth. The combination created a horrific chimera of mismatched parts. More. Kevin demanded, advancing on Ben. I need more power. Ben met his charge head-on, for arm strength matching Kevin's amalgamated powers. They crashed through walls and equipment, their battle destroying what remained of the facility. Outside, emergency personnel retreated as the power station began to collapse. News helicopters circled overhead, broadcasting the battle live to millions. Ben caught glimpses of the coverage on intact monitors, footage that showed him fighting desperately against a monster his own actions had helped create. No staged heroics. No catchphrases or carefully angled shots. Just the raw, brutal reality of fixing his mistakes. Kevin grew stronger with each piece of equipment he absorbed, while Ben cycled through alien forms as the Omnitrix allowed, for arms to XLR-8 to Diamond Head to Stinkfly. Each transformation brought temporary advantage before Kevin adapted. You can't beat me, Tennyson. Kevin taunted as they crashed through the facility's roof onto an elevated platform. I have your powers plus my own. I'm Kevin 11, better than Ben 10 in every way. Ben, currently as Heatblast, fired continuous flames that Kevin partially absorbed. This isn't a competition, Kevin. Your body can't handle all that energy. You're literally killing yourself. Better to burn out spectacularly than fade away, right? Kevin laughed maniacally. Isn't that what fame is all about? What you taught me? The accusation struck deep. In his pursuit of celebrity, had Ben modeled the very self-destruction Kevin now embraced. Their battle reached its climax atop the facility's tallest structure, a transmission tower now crackling with the excess energy Kevin had absorbed. Below, evacuations continued as power fluctuations caused blackouts across Bellwood. News helicopters maintained a safe distance, their cameras capturing every moment. Ben, having reverted to human form after another Omnitrix timeout, looked at Kevin, really looked at him. Beyond the monstrous appearance, he saw pain, loneliness, and a desperate need to matter. All things Ben had felt before the Omnitrix, before fame offered illusory validation. Kevin, stop, Ben pleaded. You don't need to do this. You don't need to prove anything. Easy for you to say. Kevin snarled. You had everything handed to you. The watch, the fame, the adoration. What did Kevin Levin ever get handed except rejection and fear? You got my friendship, Ben said quietly. And I failed you as a friend. I should have seen where we were heading. Should have stopped us before it went too far. Kevin hesitated, confusion briefly replacing rage. But we can fix this, Ben continued. Together. No cameras, no fame, no showing off. Just 2 kids with weird powers figuring things out. For a heartbeat, Ben thought he'd reached him. Kevin's expression softened, the human beneath the monster visible again. Then a news helicopter flew too close, its spotlight illuminating them dramatically. Kevin's eyes narrowed at the camera, at the reminder of a world that would always see him as a spectacle, a villain to Ben's hero. Too late for that, Kevin growled, absorbing energy directly from the tower. His body convulsed as power overloaded his already unstable form. If they want a monster, I'll give them a monster. And you get a front row seat to watch your friend destroy everything you care about. Kevin directed a massive energy discharge toward downtown Bellwood. Ben activated the Omnitrix one last time, transforming into Diamond Head. Without hesitation, he positioned himself in the energy's path, his crystalline body refracting and redirecting the blast harmlessly skyward. The effort cracked his form, pain lancing through him as his crystal body began to fracture. Still, Ben maintained position, protecting the city below. "Kevin, stop," he shouted through the strain. "You're going to kill yourself." "Maybe that's the point." Kevin replied, his voice breaking. "Maybe I'm tired of being Kevin Levin, the freak nobody wanted." The energy flow intensified. Ben's crystal form began to shatter, pieces breaking away as he struggled to maintain the defensive position. Through the pain, he realized what needed to happen, what should have happened long ago. "I wanted you." Ben called out. "I wanted your friendship. Not because of what you could do or how you made me feel, but because you understood what it's like to be different. And I'm sorry I forgot that along the way." The raw honesty in Ben's voice penetrated Kevin's rage. The energy flow faltered momentarily. "You're lying," Kevin accused, though uncertainty tinged his voice. "You just want me to stop so you can be the hero again." "There are no cameras rolling in my direction right now," Ben pointed out, his crystalline form continuing to crack under pressure. "They're all focused on you, Kevin. This isn't about being a hero anymore. It's about saving my friend before he destroys himself." Kevin glanced around, noticing the truth in Ben's words. The helicopters circled him, their cameras capturing his monstrous form rather than Ben's heroic stand. For the first time, Kevin seemed to truly see what he had become, not powerful, but pitiful. Not famous, but infamous. A cautionary tale rather than a celebrated figure. "I just wanted to matter," Kevin whispered, his energy output wavering. "Like you matter." "You always mattered," Ben replied, his voice strained as more crystal fragments broke away. "And we can fix this. But you have to stop. Now." Something in Kevin broke, not physically, but emotionally. The accumulated rage and resentment that had fueled his transformation gave way to exhausted acceptance. The energy flow diminished, then ceased entirely. Kevin collapsed to his knees atop the tower. Ben, severely weakened, reverted to human form. Cautiously, he approached Kevin, whose monstrous appearance hadn't faded but whose posture now conveyed defeat rather than defiance. "What happens now?" Kevin asked quietly. "Now we get you help," Ben promised, extending his hand once more. "Real help, not just containment. I'll make sure of it." Kevin stared at the offered hand, then at Ben's face, searching for deception and finding none. Slowly, he reached out with his patchwork arm. Their hands never connected. A concentrated energy blast struck Kevin from behind, sending him tumbling off the tower. Ben looked up to see a plumber ship hovering nearby, weapons still smoking. "No!" Ben shouted, activating the Omnitrix again despite its warning beeps. Nothing happened, the device had reached its limit. Ben watched helplessly as Kevin fell, his monstrous body crashing through lower levels of the facility before disappearing amid structural collapse. Plumber agents rappelled from their ship, securing the area with practiced efficiency. Among them descended Grandpa Max, his expression grim but determined. He approached Ben, who still stood shell-shocked at the tower's edge. "We had to act," Max explained, though his tone suggested he took no pleasure in the decision. Energy readings showed he was about to experience a complete meltdown. The blast was calculated to disrupt his energy matrix before that happened. "Is he?" Ben couldn't finish the question. "We don't know," Max admitted. "No body has been recovered yet. But Ben, if he survived, he's still extremely dangerous, to himself and others." Ben stared down at the wreckage below, grief and guilt overwhelming him. "I almost reached him. He was going to take my hand." "Maybe," Max placed a hand on Ben's shoulder. Or maybe that's what he wanted you to think. Kevin Levin was troubled long before you met him, Ben. Some damage can't be undone quickly. Ben shrugged away from his grandfather's touch. This isn't just about Kevin. It's about me too. About what I became, what I let myself become. He looked at the Omnitrix, now dormant on his wrist. I turned the most powerful device in the galaxy into a publicity stunt. I used it for fame instead of protection. And then I dragged Kevin into my mess. Max didn't argue. There was no point denying what they both knew to be true. Instead, he gestured toward the plumber ship hovering nearby. It's time to go, Ben. There will be consequences for your actions, official ones. But also a chance to make amends. Ben took one last look at the destruction below, the physical manifestation of his moral failures. Kevin was gone, possibly dead, definitely changed forever. Public opinion had turned against Ben 10. The carefree days of celebrity and adulation had ended. Perhaps that was for the best. Perhaps this was what he'd needed all along, to lose everything he'd built on shallow foundation before he could start again with something real. I'm ready, Ben said quietly, following Max toward the ship. Not running from consequences this time, but facing them head-on. As they departed, news helicopters captured the scene from a distance, Ben Tennyson, head bowed, boarding a government vessel. No triumphant poses. No victory celebrations. Just a boy who had learned the hardest lesson of all, with great power comes great responsibility, and the price of ignoring that truth is steep indeed. 3 weeks later, Ben sat in a plumber facility conference room, surrounded by officials from various Earth governments and alien representatives. Before him lay documents outlining the terms of his probation, the conditions under which he would be allowed to retain the Omnitrix. The terms are non-negotiable, a stern-faced woman in a military uniform explained. The Omnitrix remains with you, but its usage will be monitored and regulated. Transformations for non-emergency situations require prior approval. Training will be mandatory, supervised by designated plumber personnel. Ben scanned the documents without objection. Once, he would have raged against such restrictions, seen them as an attack on his freedom, his celebrity status. Now, he recognized them as necessary guardrails for a power he'd mishandled. Additionally, the woman continued, your public profile as Ben 10 will be significantly reduced. No more television specials, endorsement deals, or social media presence relating to your alien activities. The plumbers will manage all public information about the Omnitrix going forward. What about school? Ben asked. My family? My normal life? Grandpa Max, present as Ben's advocate, answered that question. You'll return to regular schooling. The plumbers will provide cover stories for your previous, celebrity activities. Most people will believe it was a publicity stunt that got out of hand. And my parents? They know everything, Max confirmed. They're not happy about your choices, but they support this arrangement. It's either this or. He didn't finish, but he didn't need to. The alternative was losing the Omnitrix entirely. Ben signed the documents without further question. As he did, he felt a weight lifting, not freedom, exactly, but relief. Structure and accountability might be exactly what he needed. There's one more thing, Max added as the officials gathered their materials. About Kevin Levin. Ben's head snapped up. For weeks, he'd received no information about Kevin's fate despite repeated inquiries. You found him? Not exactly, Max replied carefully. But we've confirmed he survived the incident at the power station. There have been energy absorption events reported in several cities moving steadily westward. He's running, Ben realized. Looking for somewhere to hide while he figures out his new condition. Or looking for something, Max corrected. Our intelligence suggests he may be seeking alien technology that could stabilize or enhance his current form. I need to find him, Ben said immediately. This is my fault. I need to make it right. That's not possible under the terms of your probation, the military woman interjected. A specialized plumber team has been assigned to track and contain Kevin 11. Contain. Ben stood, anger flashing. He needs help, not containment. He's not just some monster, he's a kid who got powers he couldn't control, just like me. The difference is he didn't get the support I did. The room fell silent at his outburst. Finally, Max spoke. Ben's right, he said, surprising everyone. Kevin Levin needs rehabilitation, not just containment. And Ben's connection to him could be valuable in that process. He turned to his grandson. But not yet. First, you need to demonstrate that you've learned from your mistakes. That you can be trusted with the responsibility you've been given. Ben wanted to argue, to demand immediate action. But he recognized the wisdom in Max's words. He'd lost the right to make demands when he'd abused his powers. Trust would need to be rebuilt, one day at a time. How long? He asked simply. Your probation period is 6 months, Max replied. Show them you can follow the rules, train properly, use your powers responsibly, and then we'll discuss Kevin. Ben nodded, accepting the terms. 6 months to prove himself. 6 months to rebuild what his fame-seeking had destroyed. 6 months to prepare for eventually helping the friend he'd failed. As the meeting concluded, Ben walked with Max toward the facility exit. For the first time in weeks, he would be returning home, to a normal house, normal school, normal life. The celebrities who had once courted his attention had disappeared along with his public profile. The sponsorships had evaporated. The fans had moved on to the next sensation. It feels weird, Ben admitted as they reached the parking lot. Going back to being just Ben. You were never just Ben, Max replied. Even before the Omnitrix. You had potential I recognized from the start, potential that had nothing to do with alien transformations. Potential to mess everything up. Ben asked ruefully. Potential to learn from your mistakes, Max corrected. That's rarer than you might think. He placed a hand on Ben's shoulder. Fame isn't the measure of a hero, Ben. Neither is power. It's the choices you make when nobody's watching that define who you really are. Ben looked down at the Omnitrix, now modified with additional plumber technology to monitor its usage. The restrictions felt appropriate rather than confining, a chance to rebuild on solid ground instead of shifting sand. I'm ready to make better choices, Ben said with quiet determination. Whether anyone's watching or not. As they drove away from the facility, no cameras followed. No reporters called his name. No fans sought autographs. But for the first time in months, Ben Tennyson felt like he might be on the path to becoming something better than famous. He might be on the path to becoming a true hero. Chapter 3, The Hero's Choice. 6 months of probation taught Ben Tennyson more than the previous 11 years of his life combined. Rain pelted the windows of Bellwood Middle School as Ben stared at the math test on his desk, genuinely trying to solve the equations without sneaking a look at Gwen's paper 2 seats over. The temptation lingered. He could easily turn into gray matter for 5 seconds and solve everything, but he dismissed it immediately. The Omnitrix wasn't a cheat code for life anymore. 5 minutes remaining, Ms. Henderson announced, making several students groan. Ben chewed his pencil, focusing on the final problem. Pre-algebra wasn't exactly his strong suit, but he'd actually studied this time. The old Ben would have blown it off for video games or alien adventures. The new Ben, well, he still hated math, but he recognized that even heroes needed to understand basic equations. The bell rang just as Ben scribbled his final answer. He handed in his test with a mixture of relief and quiet pride. He probably hadn't aced it, but he'd completed it honestly. Small victories. How'd you do? Gwen caught up with him in the hallway. Their relationship had improved dramatically since the Kevin incident, their usual bickering replaced by something closer to actual friendship. Probably a B-, Ben shrugged. But hey, that beats my old F+ average. Progress, Gwen nodded approvingly. Grandpa's picking us up today, right? Yeah, training session at the quarry. Ben glanced around automatically. Even after months of keeping a low profile, he still found himself checking for cameras or fans. Old habits died hard. They headed toward the exit, navigating through students who mostly ignored them now. Ben's fall from fame had been dramatic and complete. The Ben 10 phenomenon had faded from public consciousness, dismissed as a viral marketing campaign that had gotten out of hand. His former hangers-on had moved on to the next big thing. Cash and JT barely acknowledged him anymore. Strangely, Ben didn't miss it. Outside, the rust bucket waited in the pickup lane. Ben and Gwen hurried through the rain and climbed aboard. How was school? Grandpa Max asked, pulling away from the curb. Wet, Ben replied, shaking droplets from his hair. But I think I did okay on my math test. Good to hear, Max smiled. Ready for today's exercise? It's going to test your strategic thinking more than raw power. Bring it on, Ben said with genuine enthusiasm. Gwen's been too smug since she beat my obstacle course time last week. It wasn't even close, Gwen reminded him cheerfully. I finished a full minute faster. With magic shortcuts. Ben protested. Strategy, she countered, wiggling her fingers. Not my fault you relied on brute force instead of brains. Their good-natured argument continued as Max drove toward the abandoned quarry that had become their training ground. For the past 6 months, Ben had submitted to the structured training program required by his probation. Initial resentment had given way to understanding and eventually appreciation. He was learning to use his aliens more effectively, more responsibly, and with greater purpose. The monitoring restrictions on the Omnitrix had been gradually loosened as Ben proved himself trustworthy. What remained was less a punishment and more a safety measure, ensuring the device wasn't misused or activated accidentally. Ben no longer saw it as a limitation but a reasonable precaution for technology so powerful. At the quarry, they found a plumber shuttle already waiting. Ben recognized the insignia and felt a familiar mix of anticipation and nervousness. Plumber oversight meant today's training session carried official weight. A tall, blue-skinned alien emerged from the shuttle as they parked. Magister Tennyson, he greeted Max formally. And young Ben and Gwendolyn. Right on time. Magister Labrid, Max returned the greeting with equal formality. I assume the probationary review committee sent you. Indeed. The alien's 4 eyes blinked in sequence. Today marks exactly 6 months since the terms were established. Ben Tennyson's probation period is technically complete, pending final evaluation. Ben straightened at this news. 6 months had passed so quickly he'd almost lost track. If he passed today's evaluation, the most restrictive conditions of his probation would be lifted. He'd have greater freedom with the Omnitrix, not for fame or showing off, but for actually helping people when needed. What's the test? Ben asked, trying to sound confident. Magister Labrid gestured toward the quarry floor where various obstacles and targets had been arranged. A comprehensive evaluation of your alien transformations, tactical decision-making, and, most importantly, judgment about when transformation is and isn't necessary. Ben nodded seriously. That last part would have confused him 6 months ago. Back then, every problem looked like an excuse to go alien. Now he understood that sometimes the best solution involved no transformation at all. The scenario is simple, Labrid continued. A simulated emergency with multiple objectives, civilians to rescue, a structural collapse to prevent, and hostiles to neutralize. You'll be evaluated not just on completion, but on method, efficiency, and restraint. I'm ready, Ben said, meaning it. The evaluation began immediately. Holographic projectors created realistic scenarios throughout the quarry, civilians trapped under debris, unstable rock formations threatening to collapse, and drone hostiles programmed to attack anyone who approached. Ben surveyed the situation before touching the Omnitrix, analyzing rather than rushing in. The old Ben would have immediately transformed into 4 arms and started smashing. The new Ben took 10 seconds to develop a plan. "Gwen, can you shield the civilians in the north sector while I stabilize that rock formation?" he asked, already activating the Omnitrix. "On it," she replied, hands glowing with magical energy as she moved into position. Ben transformed into Diamond Head, using his crystal generation abilities to create support structures beneath the unstable rocks rather than simply smashing through them. When drones attacked, he defended himself efficiently without excessive force or collateral damage. Throughout the exercise, Ben demonstrated a measured approach to each challenge. He used gray matter to disarm a simulated explosive device rather than trying to contain the blast with a stronger alien. He rescued trapped civilians as XLR-8 without causing further structural damage. He even reverted to human form to squeeze through a narrow space when no alien form would fit better than his normal body. As the simulation concluded, Ben stood before Magister Labrid, awaiting judgment. Sweat beaded on his forehead from exertion, but satisfaction radiated from his expression. Whatever the outcome, he knew he'd performed to the best of his abilities, not to impress, but to prove he understood his responsibilities. Labrid consulted a data pad, reviewing the metrics of Ben's performance. After what seemed like an eternity, he looked up. "Ben Tennyson, based on today's evaluation and your conduct during the probationary period, I am authorized to lift all temporary restrictions on the Omnitrix." Relief washed over Ben. "Thank you, sir." "Don't thank me yet," Labrid cautioned. "With greater freedom comes greater responsibility. The plumbers will continue monitoring your activities, but you now have the autonomy to make field decisions without prior approval." "I understand," Ben nodded solemnly. "There is one more matter," Labrid added, glancing at Max, "the situation regarding Kevin Levin." Ben tensed. Throughout his probation, he'd received only minimal updates about Kevin's whereabouts and condition. Each report suggested Kevin's hybrid form had stabilized somewhat, but his activities remained concerning, primarily theft of high-energy technology and occasional destructive outbursts when confronted. "What about Kevin?" Ben asked cautiously. "Your request to lead the effort to locate and rehabilitate him has been reviewed," Labrid stated. "Given your successful completion of probation, conditional approval has been granted." Ben's eyes widened. "Seriously? I can look for him?" "With supervision," Labrid clarified. "Magister Tennyson will oversee the operation, and you will follow established protocols. Kevin Levin remains extremely dangerous." "I know," Ben acknowledged. "But he's dangerous partly because of me. I need to try to help him." "Your sense of responsibility does you credit," Labrid observed. "Perhaps you've learned more from your mistakes than anyone anticipated." As the plumber departed in his shuttle, Ben turned to Grandpa Max, unable to contain his excitement. "When do we start looking for Kevin? I have some ideas about where he might go for technology that could help stabilize his condition." "Tomorrow," Max replied. "But Ben, don't get your hopes too high. Kevin's been in the wind for 6 months, absorbing who knows what energies and technologies. He may not be the same person you knew." "I have to try," Ben insisted. "I helped cause this. I need to help fix it." Max nodded, recognizing the maturity in Ben's perspective. No longer was he seeking adventures or accolades. He genuinely wanted to make amends for past mistakes, a true sign of growth. As they packed up their equipment, Ben's phone buzzed with a notification. Despite his withdrawal from social media fame, he still maintained accounts under his real name. The notification was from a news app he followed. Strange lights reported in Earth's atmosphere, astronomical anomaly or something more. Ben showed the alert to Max, whose expression immediately darkened. "Grandpa?" Ben questioned. "What is it?" "Probably nothing," Max replied, though his tone suggested otherwise. "But we should keep an eye on it. Space anomalies aren't always natural." "You think it could be aliens?" Gwen asked, joining them. "It's always aliens with us," Ben joked, though a familiar tension crept into his shoulders. Something about Max's reaction suggested this wasn't routine. As they drove back toward Bellwood, Ben stared out the window at the cloudy sky, wondering what might be lurking beyond those clouds. His 6-month probation had just ended, granting him freedom to use the Omnitrix as the hero he now strived to be. The timing felt significant, though he couldn't explain why. One thought kept circling in his mind: if something was coming, at least this time he was prepared, not as a celebrity seeking fame, but as a proper wielder of the Omnitrix, understanding both its power and his responsibility. Whatever came next, Ben Tennyson was ready. 3 days later, Ben wasn't so sure about being ready. "I don't like this," he muttered, scanning the abandoned factory from their hidden position across the street. Kevin's never stayed in one place this long before. Surveillance data had led them to this location on the outskirts of a neighboring town. Energy readings suggested Kevin had been operating from this factory for nearly a week, unusual for someone who typically moved every day or two to avoid detection. "Maybe he's found something worth staying for," Gwen suggested, her hands glowing faintly as she maintained a detection spell. "I'm picking up weird energy signatures. Nothing like Kevin's usual pattern." Grandpa Max lowered his binoculars. "Whatever he's doing in there, we stick to the plan. Approach non-aggressively, attempt communication, offer assistance. No confrontation unless absolutely necessary." Ben nodded, adjusting the watch-like communicator on his opposite wrist from the Omnitrix, standard plumber issue, connecting him directly to Max and Gwen if they got separated. "Ready?" Max asked. "Ready," Ben and Gwen confirmed simultaneously. They approached the factory using cover of darkness, moving between abandoned vehicles and overgrown vegetation. As they neared the main entrance, Gwen's magic detected no immediate threats or alarm systems. "Too easy," in Ben's opinion. "He knows we're coming," Ben whispered. "He has to." "Probably," Max agreed. "But knowing Kevin, he's curious about what we want." The main doors hung partially open, light leaking from within. Ben took point, moving cautiously into the factory's cavernous interior. The space had been transformed, various pieces of salvaged technology lined the walls, connected by cables to a central platform where a makeshift device hummed with energy. Kevin was nowhere in sight. "Welcome to my workshop," Kevin's voice echoed from somewhere above. "Been wondering how long it would take you to find me." They looked up to see Kevin perched on a catwalk 30 feet overhead. His appearance had evolved since their last encounter, still a patchwork of materials and alien features, but more cohesive, as though he'd gained better control over his transformed state. "We've been looking for a while," Ben replied, keeping his tone neutral. "You're good at disappearing when you want to." Kevin leapt from the catwalk, landing heavily before them. Up close, Ben could see the changes more clearly. Kevin had incorporated elements of several alien forms from the Omnitrix, but in a controlled manner rather than the chaotic mess of their last meeting. "Yeah, well, being a freak gives you motivation to stay hidden." Kevin's voice carried a bitter edge, but lacked the manic rage from the power station incident. "So what's this? Capture squad? Here to put me in a nice plumber cage?" "We're here to help," Ben said simply. "If you'll let us." Kevin laughed, a harsh, disbelieving sound. "Right. Help. Like last time?" "Last time, I messed up," Ben admitted. "We both did. But this isn't about that. It's about figuring out if we can stabilize your condition." "My condition is just fine," Kevin gestured to himself. "I've learned to control it. Turns out when you're not constantly hunted, you can actually focus on mastering your powers instead of just surviving." Max stepped forward. "The energy patterns in your cellular structure are still unstable, Kevin. You might feel in control now, but long-term exposure to multiple alien DNA fragments and absorbed energies will have consequences." Kevin's expression hardened. "And I should trust you because despite everything, I still consider you my friend," Ben answered before Max could respond. And because whatever you're building here isn't just for you, is it? Kevin's eyes narrowed suspiciously. What do you mean? This setup, Ben gestured to the machinery around them. It's a communication array, not a power generator. You're trying to contact someone. Or something. For a moment, Kevin looked genuinely surprised at Ben's observation. Then his expression shifted to grudging respect. Look at you, actually using your brain instead of just showing off. Fame withdrawal doing you good, Tennyson. You could say that, Ben acknowledged. 6 months of actually learning how my aliens work instead of just using them for TV stunts. Turns out Upgrade and Grey Matter understand technology pretty well when I'm paying attention. Kevin considered this, then shrugged. Fine. Yeah, it's a communication array. But not because I'm calling anyone. Someone's been trying to reach Earth, specifically, trying to track a certain piece of alien tech that shouldn't be here. His gaze fixed meaningfully on the Omnitrix. Max tensed visibly. You've been monitoring transmissions searching for the Omnitrix. Intercepting them, actually, Kevin corrected. Whoever's sending these signals doesn't exactly have friendly intentions. The transmissions include attack formations, invasion protocols, weapon specifications. Why would you care? Gwen asked. Last time we saw you, you weren't exactly concerned about Earth's well-being. I live here too, Kevin replied defensively. And contrary to what you might think, I don't want the planet conquered by whatever's sending these signals. Especially since they'd probably dissect me to study how I've incorporated alien DNA. Ben and Max exchanged troubled glances. The news reports about atmospheric anomalies suddenly took on new significance. How long? Ben asked. How long have you been picking up these transmissions? About 2 weeks, Kevin answered. But they've intensified in the last 3 days. Whatever's coming is getting closer. We need to see the data, Max said firmly. All of it. Kevin hesitated, old suspicions warring with pragmatism. Finally, he nodded toward his central console. Over there. I've recorded everything. But I'm warning you now, it doesn't look good for any of us. They gathered around the makeshift computer system, where Kevin pulled up screens of data, signal patterns, and decoded transmissions. As Max reviewed the information, his face grew increasingly grim. It's him, Max said quietly. Vilgax. The name sent a chill down Ben's spine. Memories of their previous encounter flooded back, the overwhelming power, the single-minded determination to acquire the Omnitrix, the destruction left in his wake. I thought he was contained, Ben said. After last time, containment was always temporary, Max interrupted. The plumbers knew he'd eventually break free. We just hoped to have more time to prepare. Who's Vilgax? Kevin asked, looking between them. The most dangerous being in the galaxy, Gwen answered grimly. And he's obsessed with getting the Omnitrix. Kevin processed this information, then turned to Ben with surprising intensity. You fought this guy before. And won. Barely, Ben admitted. And not alone. It took everything we had just to contain him temporarily. And now he's coming back, Kevin concluded. With a fleet, based on these transmissions. He's not taking chances this time. Max continued analyzing the data. According to these coordinates and velocity calculations, Vilgax's fleet will reach Earth orbit within 48 hours. Maybe less. So what's the plan? Ben asked, automatically falling into crisis mode. Contact the plumbers. Full planetary defense. The plumbers are already stretched thin across the galaxy, Max replied. They'll send reinforcements, but not in time. Earth's conventional defenses won't stand a chance against Vilgax's technology. So we're on our own, Gwen summarized. Not necessarily, Kevin interjected, surprising them all. I might have something that could help. He led them to a sealed container at the far end of his workshop. Inside lay a device unlike anything Ben had seen before, sleek, alien in design, glowing with internal energy. What is that? Ben asked. Don't know its proper name, Kevin shrugged. I call it the Pulse. Salvaged it from a crashed scout ship last month. It creates a disruption field that temporarily disables most technology within its radius. Could buy us time against Vilgax's fleet, if we can amplify it enough. Max examined the device cautiously. This is Galvan technology. Highly advanced. How did you get it working? I'm good with tech, Kevin said defensively. And I had motivation. Been trying to adapt it to stabilize my condition, but it works better as a weapon. If we could increase its range, Gwen mused, maybe install it on a satellite or high-altitude platform. It could disable Vilgax's ships long enough for us to mount a proper defense, Ben finished her thought. Kevin, that's brilliant. Kevin seemed momentarily disarmed by the genuine praise. Yeah, well, like I said. I live here too. A tentative alliance formed in that moment, not based on friendship or trust, but on mutual survival. Kevin might still harbor resentment toward Ben, but facing Vilgax took priority over personal grievances. We should move this operation to a more secure location, Max decided. The plumber base under Mount Rushmore has the equipment we'll need to modify the Pulse. Kevin nodded reluctantly. Fine. But I'm not becoming a plumber prisoner after this is over. We clear on that? Crystal, Ben assured him. This is a partnership, not a trap. I promise. As they gathered the essential equipment, Ben noticed Kevin watching him with an unreadable expression. What? Ben asked. You're different, Kevin observed. Less annoying. Not constantly showing off or talking about your fame. Yeah, well, hitting rock bottom will do that to you, Ben replied. Turns out having the whole world turn against you is pretty effective at deflating your ego. Tell me about it, Kevin snorted. Been there my whole life. The comment created an unexpected moment of connection between them, two kids who had experienced public rejection, albeit through very different paths. As they loaded the last of Kevin's equipment into Grandpa Max's RV, Ben's communicator beeped with an emergency alert. He activated it to find a plumber officer's face appearing in holographic form. Ben Tennyson, this is Magister Patellidae. We're detecting multiple objects entering Earth's upper atmosphere. Preliminary analysis confirms Chimerian technology. Vilgax has arrived early. Ben's stomach dropped. How early? His advance forces will reach Bellwood in approximately 3 hours. The main fleet follows 6 hours behind that. We're not ready, Gwen whispered, voicing what they all felt. We'll have to get ready, Max replied firmly. Alert all available plumber personnel. Coordinate with Earth's military forces. Establish emergency protocols in major population centers. Already underway, Patellidae confirmed. But without the defense systems we were planning to implement, we have something, Ben interrupted. A disruption device that might disable Vilgax's technology temporarily. We need to get it to the Mount Rushmore base for modifications. That's a 10-hour drive, Patellidae pointed out. You won't make it before the advance force arrives. Then we'll have to deal with them first, Ben decided, already calculating possibilities. Buy time for the main defense. As the transmission ended, Ben turned to find Kevin studying him with newfound respect. You really are planning to fight, aren't you? Kevin asked. Even knowing what happened last time. Even without all your celebrity backup and fans cheering you on. That's what the Omnitrix is for, Ben replied simply. Not fame. Not showing off. Protecting people who can't protect themselves. Kevin considered this, then nodded once. All right, Tennyson. Let's see if you can walk the talk. I'll help with the advance force, but only because I want to test this Vilgax guy myself. Fair enough, Ben extended his hand. Partners? At least until Earth is safe. After a moment's hesitation, Kevin clasped Ben's hand with his mismatched one, part human, part alien, wholly unique. Partners, he agreed. For now. Bellwood had never faced an alien invasion before. Its citizens had seen Ben Tennyson transform on television, witnessed the occasional strange event blamed on weather phenomena or government experiments, but nothing prepared them for the sight of massive ships darkening the sky above their city. Evacuation orders blared from emergency systems as people flooded toward designated shelters. Police and emergency services worked desperately to maintain order amidst growing panic. And at the city's center, four figures stood watching the approaching threat, a most unlikely defense force. 3 ships, Max observed through high-powered binoculars. Scout class, based on their design. Advance party for the main fleet. That's good, right? Ben asked. Just scouts, not the heavy hitters. 1 scout ship from Vilgax's fleet could level this entire city, Max replied grimly. Don't underestimate them. They had positioned themselves in Bellwood Park, a central location with enough open space to minimize civilian casualties during the coming confrontation. Kevin's pulse device sat nearby, partially modified but not yet ready for full deployment against the main fleet. The plan stays simple, Max reminded them. Ben and Kevin engage directly, keeping their attention focused here. Gwen provides defensive support and civilian protection. I'll coordinate with local authorities and monitor for additional threats. Ben nodded, eyes fixed on the approaching vessels. 6 months of training, learning, and growth had prepared him for this moment. No cameras recorded his heroism now. No fans cheered his name. Just people who needed protection and a responsibility he had finally learned to take seriously. Remember, Max added, these are just the advance forces. Conserve energy where possible. The real battle comes when Vilgax himself arrives. The ships descended to hovering positions approximately 500 feet above the park. Hatches opened in their undersides, deploying dozens of drone warriors, humanoid robots armed with energy weapons, each bearing Vilgax's insignia. Scanning for Omnitrix signature, their mechanical voices announced in unison. Locate and capture. All resistance will be terminated. That's our cue. Ben activated the Omnitrix, cycling to select 4 arms. Ready, Kevin. Kevin absorbed the metal from a nearby lamp post, his body transforming to match its properties. Born ready, Tennyson. Ben slammed down the Omnitrix dial, transforming into the 4-armed, red-skinned alien. Together, he and Kevin charged toward the descending drones while Gwen erected magical barriers around the park's perimeter to contain the battle. The fight began in earnest, 4 arms smashing through drones with practiced efficiency while Kevin demonstrated surprising combat skill with his absorbed abilities. They fought back to back, covering each other's weaknesses in a way that suggested natural teamwork despite their troubled history. On your left. Kevin called, deflecting energy blasts meant for Ben. Behind you. Ben returned the favor, using 2 of his 4 arms to grab a drone that had flanked Kevin. Grandpa Max coordinated from cover, using modified plumber weapons to disable drones that broke through their defense. Gwen maintained protective barriers while occasionally launching magical attacks of her own, her powers having grown considerably over the past 6 months. For a while, they held their ground effectively. Ben cycled through alien forms as needed, 4 arms 4. Raw strength, XLR-8 for speed attacks, Diamond Head for defense and ranged combat. Kevin adapted alongside him, absorbing different materials to complement Ben's current form. Then the tide turned. The scout ships activated more powerful weapons, targeting the park with precision strikes. Gwen's barriers strained under the assault. More drones deployed, overwhelming their defense through sheer numbers. We need to take out those ships. Ben shouted, currently in stinkfly form as he dodged aerial attacks. Ground troops are just a distraction. How? Kevin called back, struggling against 3 drones simultaneously. They're too high for a direct assault. Ben assessed the situation rapidly, then made a decision. Gwen. Can you get me to the nearest ship with a magic platform? Maybe, she shouted back. But only for a few seconds. That's all I need. Ben reverted to human form momentarily, then transformed again, this time into Upgrade, the liquid metal alien capable of merging with technology. Gwen created a glowing platform beneath him, raising it rapidly toward the nearest scout ship. As they approached, Ben leapt from the platform, his amorphous form stretching to make contact with the vessel's hull. The moment Upgrade touched the ship, he began merging with its systems, his consciousness infiltrating its technology. Ben had practiced this extensively during his training, not just controlling technology as Upgrade, but understanding it, manipulating it at its core. From inside, Ben accessed the ship's propulsion systems, weapons controls, and navigation. Rather than simply disabling them, he reprogrammed them, turning the ship's weapons against the other two vessels while locking its trajectory. Below, Kevin watched in amazement as the scout ship suddenly opened fire on its companions, damaging their weapon systems before accelerating on a collision course. The three vessels crashed together in a spectacular mid-air collision, falling away from the populated areas toward the empty quarry outside town. Ben separated from the ship just before impact, his Upgrade form allowing him to survive the fall back to the park. He reformed beside Kevin and Gwen, reverting to human as the Omnitrix timed out. That, Kevin stated with genuine impression, was actually pretty awesome. Thanks, Ben panted, watching as the remaining drones deactivated without their control ships. But it was just round one. Max joined them, his expression grim despite the victory. Vilgax's main fleet has accelerated. New ETA 3 hours, not 6. He must have detected the loss of his advance force. The pulse isn't ready, Kevin said immediately. We need at least 4 more hours to finish the modifications and deploy it properly. Then we need to buy that time, Ben decided. Grandpa, how quickly can we get to Mount Rushmore? Not quick enough by conventional transport, Max replied. But I've called in a favor. He pointed skyward where a plumber shuttle was descending toward their position. This will get us there in under an hour. They boarded quickly, bringing Kevin's pulse device and essential equipment. As the shuttle accelerated away from Bellwood, Ben looked back at his hometown, streets empty from evacuation, smoke rising from where the scout ships had crashed, an eerie calm before the coming storm. We beat his advance force, Gwen noted, trying to sound optimistic. That's something, right? A minor victory, Max tempered her enthusiasm. Vilgax himself is another matter entirely. And he'll be angry now. Good, Kevin surprisingly responded. Angry enemies make mistakes. Trust me, I know. Ben studied Kevin thoughtfully. Despite everything, Kevin had fought alongside them effectively, protecting civilians, coordinating attacks, proving himself more than just the angry, power-hungry kid from 6 months ago. Why are you really helping us, Kevin? Ben asked directly. And don't say it's just because you live on Earth too. There's more to it. Kevin avoided eye contact, focusing on adjustments to the pulse device. Maybe I'm tired of being the bad guy. Maybe I want to know what it feels like to save something instead of break it. He glanced up briefly. Or maybe I just want to see if you're really as different as you seem. Different how? Ben pressed. 6 months ago, you were all about the glory. The fame. Making sure everyone knew Ben 10 saved the day. Kevin's mismatched hands continued working as he spoke. Now you're fighting when no one's watching. When there's no reward except maybe staying alive. That's interesting to me. It was perhaps the most honest conversation they'd ever had, no posturing, no showing off on either side. Just two kids who had received great power and made very different choices with it, now finding common ground in the face of global threat. The shuttle entered Plummer airspace over Mount Rushmore, descending toward a concealed hangar built into the mountainside behind the famous monument. Inside, they found a facility buzzing with emergency activity, Plummer personnel coordinating global defenses, monitoring Vilgax's approaching fleet, preparing for the worst. Magister Tennyson. A plumber officer approached as they disembarked. We've prepared the laboratory as requested. All equipment is ready for modification of the disruption device. Thank you, Lieutenant, Max replied. This is Kevin Levin. Despite his history, he'll be leading the technical modifications. Give him whatever assistance he requires. The officer looked dubiously at Kevin's monstrous appearance but nodded professionally. Yes, sir. This way, please. As Kevin followed with the pulse device, Ben caught his arm. You're really sure this will work? No, Kevin answered honestly. But it's the best shot we've got. The pulse creates a disruption field that should temporarily disable Vilgax's technology, ships, weapons, drones, everything. If we can amplify it enough and deploy it at the right moment. It might buy us the time we need to mount a proper defense, Ben finished. Or even force a retreat. That's the hope, Kevin nodded. Now let me work. Clock's ticking. While Kevin and the plumber technicians worked on the pulse, Max led Ben and Gwen to the command center, a massive chamber dominated by holographic displays showing Vilgax's approaching fleet. The formation was impressive and terrifying, dozens of warships surrounding one massive flagship at least 5 times larger than the others. That's Vilgax's personal vessel, Max indicated the flagship. The Chimerian Hammer. More heavily armed and shielded than anything Earth has ever faced. We've beaten him before, Gwen reminded them. We can do it again. Last time was different, Max cautioned. We caught him partially unprepared, focused solely on acquiring the Omnitrix. This time, he's coming with full invasion force and likely a personal vendetta against Ben for his previous defeat. Ben studied the tactical displays, mind racing through possibilities. The pulse is our best shot, but we need backup plans. Multiple layers of defense. Already in progress, Max brought up additional displays. Earth's military forces are deploying anti-aircraft capabilities. The plumbers have activated all orbital defense platforms. We've evacuated major population centers near likely landing zones. Not enough, Ben shook his head. Vilgax wants me, or more specifically, the Omnitrix. We need to use that. Max's expression sharpened. What are you suggesting? A trap, Ben replied simply. Make Vilgax think I'm isolated, vulnerable. Draw him away from populated areas to where we control the battlefield. If Kevin's device works, we hit the fleet while Vilgax himself is separated from it. Absolutely not, Max rejected immediately. You're not offering yourself as bait. It's not about being heroic or sacrificial, Ben argued. It's strategic. Vilgax is obsessed with the Omnitrix. If he thinks he can get it easily, he'll come himself rather than risk anyone else claiming the prize. That splits their forces. He's right, Gwen reluctantly supported. Vilgax's ego and obsession are weaknesses we can exploit. Max appeared torn between tactical agreement and protective instinct. Before he could respond, alarms blared throughout the facility. A plumber officer rushed into the command center. Magister. Vilgax's fleet has accelerated again. New ETA 20 minutes. 20 minutes. Ben exclaimed. How is that possible? Some kind of space-folding technology, the officer explained hurriedly. They've jumped ahead of our detection grid. Max immediately activated emergency protocols. All personnel to battle stations. Deploy orbital defenses. Begin final civilian evacuations from projected landing zones. Ben turned to Gwen, urgency evident in his voice. Get to Kevin. Tell him we're out of time. The pulse needs to be ready now, not in hours. As Gwen raced toward the laboratory, Ben faced his grandfather. My plan is our best option now. We don't have time for alternatives. Max studied Ben for a long moment, seeing not the fame-hungry kid who had misused the Omnitrix, but the young hero who had learned from those mistakes. Finally, he nodded. Where do you want to make your stand? The desert testing range, Ben decided. Unpopulated, controllable terrain, and the plumbers have infrastructure there we can use. Max relayed the orders, mobilizing transport and defenses toward the desert facility. Ben prepared himself mentally for what was to come, not just a battle against Vilgax, but the ultimate test of everything he'd learned during his 6 months of redemption. No cameras would record this fight. No fans would cheer his name. This wasn't about fame or glory or even personal vindication. This was simply about protecting his home, his family, his world, because it was the right thing to do. As Ben boarded a transport shuttle alongside Max, Kevin rushed in with Gwen behind him. The pulse isn't ready, Kevin announced breathlessly. Not fully. But I've reconfigured it for a more focused effect. Instead of disabling the entire fleet at once, we can target specific vessels at closer range. Will it work on Vilgax's flagship? Ben asked. Maybe, Kevin replied. If we get close enough and hit it with everything the device has. But it's a one-shot deal, the power cells will burn out after a single full-strength pulse. Then we make it count, Ben decided. One shot when it matters most. As their shuttle launched toward the desert facility, the first images of Vilgax's fleet entering Earth's atmosphere appeared on the monitors. Massive ships breached the cloud layer, descending toward major cities worldwide. Defensive fire from Earth's military forces seemed ineffective, energy weapons absorbing or deflecting conventional munitions with ease. They're beginning landing. Operations, a plumber officer reported. Ground forces deploying in 17 locations globally. Ben watched the monitors, feeling the weight of responsibility more heavily than ever before. This wasn't just about Bellwood or even America, the entire planet faced an unprecedented threat. Send the message, Ben instructed. On all frequencies, clear and direct. Let Vilgax know exactly where to find me and the Omnitrix. Max hesitated only briefly before nodding to a communications officer. Moments later, a transmission beamed from their shuttle directly toward Vilgax's flagship, Vilgax. This is Ben Tennyson. I know what you want. The Omnitrix is with me at these coordinates. Come and get it yourself, if you dare. The challenge was simple, direct, and calculated to appeal to Vilgax's ego and obsession. As they landed at the desert facility, all eyes turned skyward, waiting to see if the gambit would work. It did. Sensor readings showed Vilgax's flagship breaking formation, accelerating toward their location while the rest of the fleet continued their distributed attack pattern. He took the bait, Gwen observed. Now what? Now we prepare, Ben replied, watching as plumber personnel established defensive positions around the facility. Kevin, get the pulse in position. Gwen, we'll need your magical barriers at key points. Grandpa, coordinate the plumber forces for maximum effect when Vilgax lands. As everyone moved to their assigned tasks, Kevin paused beside Ben. You know, for someone who used to just turn into aliens and smash things without thinking, you've gotten pretty good at the whole strategy thing. Had a good teacher, Ben nodded toward Max, several good teachers, actually. Including failure? Kevin suggested knowingly. Especially failure, Ben acknowledged. Nothing teaches you faster than messing up spectacularly in front of the whole world. Kevin laughed, a genuine sound without bitterness. That's something we have in common, Tennyson. We've both been the bad guy in everyone else's story. The difference is, we get to decide what happens in the next chapter, Ben replied. Starting today. Before Kevin could respond, the facility's proximity alarms blared. Vilgax's flagship had arrived, its massive form blotting out the sun as it hovered directly overhead. Smaller vessels deployed from its hull, surrounding the facility in a display of overwhelming force. A transmission cut through all communication channels, the voice immediately recognizable in its cold, mechanical tone, Benjamin Tennyson. Your challenge is accepted. Prepare to surrender the Omnitrix, or watch your world burn. Ben stepped into the open area at the facility's center, looking up at the imposing vessels without fear. The Omnitrix gleamed green on his wrist, fully charged and ready. "I'm right here, Vilgax," he called out, knowing the alien warlord's sensors would detect him. "Just you and me. Or are you afraid to face a kid without your army?" The taunt achieved its purpose. A massive transport beam erupted from the flagship's underside, depositing a towering figure directly before Ben. Vilgax stood even more imposing than Ben remembered, over 12 feet tall, his green skin covered with battle armor, red eyes burning with hatred and obsession. "The famous Ben 10, Vilgax's voice rumbled with contempt. "Not so famous anymore, I hear. Your own people turned against you after discovering your true nature." "Maybe," Ben admitted. "But that doesn't change what I'm going to do today." "And what is that, child?" Vilgax mocked. "Defeat me again. Without your adoring audience. Without the element of surprise." "Not defeat you," Ben corrected. "Stop you. There's a difference." Vilgax laughed, a chilling sound devoid of humor. "Your bravado is amusing but meaningless. I have studied all your alien forms. Analyzed your combat patterns. There is nothing you can do that I am not prepared for." "You sure about that?" Ben activated the Omnitrix, cycling through alien silhouettes. "Because I've learned a few new tricks since we last met." Without waiting for Vilgax's response, Ben transformed, not into four arms or diamond head as expected, but into gray matter, the tiny but super-intelligent Galvan form. Vilgax's expression registered momentary confusion at this seemingly non-combative choice. "A tactical error," Vilgax concluded, reaching down to simply grab the miniature alien. "Your weakest form against my strength." Ben dodged with surprising agility, his enhanced intelligence calculating trajectories and vulnerabilities in Vilgax's armor that would have been invisible to his human perception. "Not my weakest," Ben countered, "my smartest." He leapt onto Vilgax's armor, tiny hands working at connection points and exposed circuitry. Before Vilgax could react, Ben had reconfigured key components in the warlord's mechanical enhancements, causing feedback that momentarily immobilized him. Ben used the opportunity to signal the others. Kevin activated the first stage of their plan, localized EMP devices planted around the perimeter that disabled Vilgax's nearby support drones. Gwen raised magical barriers that cut off reinforcements, while plumber forces engaged the smaller vessels with surprising effectiveness. Impressive preparation, Vilgax acknowledged as he overcame the temporary paralysis. But futile. With a sweeping motion, he activated weapon systems in his armor that fired energy blasts in all directions, disrupting Gwen's barriers and forcing Kevin to take cover. Ben barely avoided the attack, the Omnitrix timing out and returning him to human form at the worst possible moment. Vilgax advanced on Ben, triumph evident in his cruel expression. "No more transformations for now, it seems. How convenient." Ben backed away, buying time for the Omnitrix to recharge while implementing the next phase of their strategy. "You still don't get it, do you? This isn't about alien powers or who's stronger. It's about protecting what matters." Noble sentiments from someone who used the most powerful device in the galaxy for personal fame, Vilgax countered, continuing his advance. "Yeah, I messed up," Ben admitted openly. "Used the Omnitrix for all the wrong reasons. But I've learned from that." "Have you learned from your mistakes, Vilgax? Or are you still obsessed with the same power that's defeated you before?" The taunt struck a nerve. Vilgax charged forward with unexpected speed, grabbing Ben before he could dodge. His massive hand closed around Ben's throat, lifting him off the ground. "The Omnitrix should never have chosen a child," Vilgax growled. "Its power belongs to one who understands conquest, not childish games." "That's where you're wrong," Ben gasped through the constriction. "It didn't choose a conqueror because that's not what it's for." Vilgax squeezed tighter. "Enough talk. The Omnitrix is mine." He reached for Ben's wrist with his free hand, mechanical tools extending from his armor to remove the device. At that crucial moment, the final phase of their plan activated. Kevin, who had circled behind Vilgax during the confrontation, activated the pulse device at point-blank range. Energy erupted from the alien technology, washing over Vilgax in waves of disruption. His armor sparked and malfunctioned, mechanical components shutting down in cascading failure. Vilgax roared in rage, dropping Ben as his systems failed. The warlord staggered backward, temporarily vulnerable without his technological enhancements. Now! Ben shouted, the Omnitrix finally recharging. He transformed into 4 arms, launching himself at the destabilized Vilgax with everything he had. The impact sent both of them crashing through the facility's outer wall into the desert beyond. Their battle became primal, Vilgax's natural strength against 4 arms' raw power, neither able to rely on technology in the aftermath of the pulse. Across the facility and beyond, the effect spread. Vilgax's flagship experienced cascading systems failures as the pulse's energy reached it through the warlord's neural link. Smaller vessels lost power, some crashing into the desert while others drifted aimlessly. But the victory was incomplete. The pulse had burned out after a single use, as Kevin had warned. And Vilgax, despite losing his technological advantages, remained a formidable opponent through physical strength alone. You think this changes anything? Vilgax snarled as he grappled with 4 arms in the desert sand. My fleet still surrounds your world. This temporary setback means nothing. It means everything, Ben countered, landing a powerful blow that staggered the warlord. It proves you're not invincible. That Earth can fight back. Their battle continued as Gwen, Kevin, and the Plumber forces engaged the remaining functional drones and ground troops. The desert facility became a war zone, the fate of Earth hanging in the balance of this isolated confrontation. Ben cycled through alien forms as the battle demanded, for arms to XLR-8 to Diamond Head to Heat Blast, using each transformation strategically rather than for spectacle. But Vilgax adapted quickly, his centuries of combat experience compensating for the loss of technological advantage. The turning point came unexpectedly. As Ben transformed into Ghost Freak to avoid a particularly devastating attack, something went wrong. The Omnitrix sparked and malfunctioned, caught in a feedback loop from Vilgax's earlier tampering and the residual effects of the pulse. Pain shot through Ben as his transformation destabilized, leaving him trapped between forms, neither fully Ghost Freak nor fully human. He collapsed to the ground, the Omnitrix emitting warning beeps and flashes. Ben! Gwen shouted from across the battlefield, trying to reach him through the chaos. Vilgax approached slowly, savoring his apparent victory. The Omnitrix rejects you, child. As I knew it would eventually. Ben struggled to stand, his partially transformed body responding sluggishly. It's not rejecting me, he gasped. It's protecting itself from you. A futile effort, Vilgax reached down, mechanical tools extending once more from his partially restored armor. Nothing can prevent me from claiming what is rightfully mine. In that moment of crisis, with the Omnitrix malfunctioning and Vilgax closing in, Ben faced a realization that 6 months of training had prepared him for. True heroism wasn't about alien transformations or spectacular powers. It was about courage, sacrifice, and doing the right thing regardless of personal cost. With tremendous effort, Ben forced himself to stand, placing his body between Vilgax and his friends who fought nearby. Even half transformed, in pain, with the Omnitrix failing, he refused to yield. You want the Omnitrix so badly? Ben challenged, voice strained but determined. Then take it. But you'll have to go through me first, and I don't mean my alien forms. I mean me. Ben Tennyson. Vilgax paused, genuinely perplexed by this display of defiance from a seemingly defeated opponent. You have no power without the Omnitrix, child. You are nothing but a human boy. That's where you're wrong, Ben replied. The Omnitrix doesn't make the hero. The choices do. With those words, something remarkable happened. The malfunctioning Omnitrix stabilized, its erratic flashing resolving into a steady green glow. Ben's form solidified, not as Ghost Freak or any other alien, but as himself, fully human again. The Omnitrix spoke in an automated voice Ben had never heard before, DNA signature confirmed. True wielder recognized. Emergency reset authorized. A wave of green energy pulsed from the device, washing over Ben and expanding outward. The sensation was unlike any transformation, not changing him, but somehow connecting him more deeply to the Omnitrix than ever before. What is this? Vilgax demanded, backing away as the energy approached him. What have you done? I haven't done anything, Ben replied, watching in amazement as the energy continued to expand. The Omnitrix has. The pulse reached Vilgax, and where it touched his partly restored systems, they failed completely. More surprisingly, where it touched his organic form, he seemed to weaken, as though the energy specifically countered his genetic structure. Impossible. Vilgax staggered. The Omnitrix cannot be weaponized against living beings. It was designed to preserve life, not harm it. It's not harming you, Ben realized, understanding flowing through his connection with the device. It's neutralizing you. Recognizing you as a threat to its purpose. The energy continued spreading, reaching Vilgax's vessels overhead. Systems that had begun recovering from the pulse device's effects shut down more permanently as the Omnitrix's energy washed over them. Across the battlefield, Kevin and Gwen watched in awe as the tide turned definitively. Vilgax's forces faltered and retreated under the sustained effect. The warlord himself fell to his knees, his strength diminishing before their eyes. This isn't defeat, Vilgax growled, though his voice lacked its former power. Merely, strategic withdrawal. With tremendous effort, he activated an emergency teleport device in what remained of his armor. Energy swirled around him as he fixed Ben with a final venomous glare. This is not over, Ben Tennyson. The Omnitrix will be mine. Not today, Ben replied simply. And not tomorrow either. Vilgax vanished in a flash of transportation energy, retreating to whatever backup systems remained functional in his fleet. Above, the massive vessels began withdrawing, limping away from Earth with obvious damage to their propulsion and weapons systems. As the immediate threat receded, Ben looked down at the Omnitrix in wonder. Its appearance had subtly changed, the interface cleaner, the connection to his wrist more seamless, as though it had evolved alongside him. What just happened? Kevin asked, approaching cautiously. That wasn't a pulse device. No, Ben agreed. It was the Omnitrix itself. I think it finally accepted me. Truly accepted me. Grandpa Max joined them, studying the device with knowing eyes. The Omnitrix was never meant to be a weapon or a tool for fame. It was created to foster understanding between different species, to allow the wielder to experience other forms of life firsthand. And I used it for my own ego, Ben acknowledged. Until today, when I was willing to sacrifice it, and myself, to protect others. The final test, Max nodded. Not of your power, but of your character. The implications settled over Ben as Plummer forces secured the area and began assessing damage. Reports streamed in from around the globe, Vilgax's forces retreating worldwide, the invasion collapsing as quickly as it had begun. Earth had been saved not by spectacular displays of alien power, but by strategy, teamwork, and ultimately, the moral growth of an 11-year-old boy who had learned what true heroism meant. As the adrenaline of battle faded, Ben found Kevin standing apart from the others, staring at the retreating ships with an unreadable expression. What happens now? Ben asked, joining him. With you, I mean. Kevin considered the question, looking down at his mismatched, monstrous hands. Don't know. The Plumbers probably still want to lock me up for all the stuff I did before. I don't think so, Ben replied. You just helped save the planet. That counts for something. Maybe, Kevin shrugged, unconvinced. But I'm still a freak. Still dangerous. Still, broken. Ben studied his former enemy, now reluctant ally, seeing not a monster but someone painfully similar to himself, a kid with power he hadn't asked for, struggling to find the right path. The Omnitrix reset itself today, Ben said thoughtfully. Connected to me in a new way. Maybe it could help you too. Stabilize your condition. Kevin's head snapped up, hope and suspicion warring in his expression. Why would you help me? After everything? Because that's what heroes do, Ben answered simply. They help people who need it. Even people who used to be enemies. I'm not promising to become one of the good guys, Kevin warned. I've got a reputation to maintain. Wouldn't dream of asking, Ben smiled. But maybe we could try being friends again. For real this time. No showing off, no criminal activities. Just two guys with weird powers figuring things out. After a long moment, Kevin nodded. I could maybe try that. For a while. See how it goes. Gwen joined them, magical energy still glowing faintly around her hands from the battle. Does this touching reconciliation mean Kevin's joining the team? Team? Kevin raised an eyebrow. What team? Us, Gwen gestured between them. Tennyson and Company. Alien fighters. Weird problem solvers. We don't have a name yet, Ben admitted. Never really needed one when it was just about my fame. But now. Now it's about something bigger, Grandpa Max finished, approaching with a proud expression. Something worth fighting for. As they stood together amid the aftermath of battle, Ben reflected on the journey that had brought him here. From finding the Omnitrix and using it for fame, to losing everything and rebuilding from scratch, to finally understanding the true purpose of the power he'd been given. No cameras recorded this moment. No fans chanted his name. No sponsorship deals or television specials waited in the wings. Just the quiet satisfaction of knowing he'd finally become the hero the Omnitrix had always meant him to be. So what now? Gwen asked, voicing the question on everyone's mind. Ben looked down at the Omnitrix, now calm and stable on his wrist. Now we do what we should have been doing all along. We help people who need it. We protect Earth from threats like Vilgax. We figure out this hero thing together. Without the fame. The fortune. The fan clubs. Kevin asked skeptically. Without all of that, Ben confirmed. Just because it's the right thing to do. As the sun began to set over the desert battlefield, the four unlikely allies stood together, a former plumber, a young sorceress, a reformed celebrity, and a reluctant convert from villainy. Not fame seekers or glory hunters, but protectors. Defenders. Heroes. In the distance, cleanup crews and recovery teams worked to restore order. Reports continued flowing in of Vilgax's retreat from Earth's atmosphere. The immediate crisis had passed, but all of them knew others would follow. Earth had been noticed by the wider universe, for better or worse. But Ben Tennyson was ready, not as the famous Ben 10 with merchandising deals and television specials, but as the true wielder of the Omnitrix, finally understanding both its power and his responsibility. The Omnitrix had never been meant for a hero. It had been meant to create one. And at last, it had. The end. Thank you for watching this video. Please be sure to subscribe to our channel and like this video.